In this video, let's work on the tail parts of the F18. I've had some requests to move to 30 frames per second. I'm not an expert in video editing or rendering, but I think I figured out 30 frames per second. So hopefully this will be the first 30 FPS video, and I'd like to get your input on if you like it or not, or if you even tell a difference. We'll get started now by looking at the front of the F18, and we want to make this feature here and this back here. And there's a few ways to do it, so I want to cover both ways, just as examples of ways to do it. I don't think this is new to anyone who's experienced at FreeCAD though. So we could do like a simple extrusion to make this, and we can try curved shapes to make this. And we'll do both in this video. So first let's make a datum plane. I'll switch to the part design workbench. I'm going to highlight my center plane here and make a plane. And now I want to offset this in the Z direction a few millimeters, and we can see our datum plane. Next I want to rotate this thing around the x-axis, maybe 19.25, something like that. I'm trying to measure and match my tail, right? And you have to do it visually and some trial and error. But I'm going to try to get this plane straight down the middle of my tail section. That actually looks really good, better than I was expecting. Maybe my magic numbers for me are 8 millimeters and 19.25 degrees rotation around the x-axis. This may change for you depending on how you oriented and scaled your image, but this looks pretty good for me. So I'm going to say OK to that. And now it's time to make a sketch on my datum plane. So here you can see I'm working with datum plane, looks like datum plane 13 in my tree here. And I can show and hide that with my spacebar. So I'm going to create a sketch on this plane. I'll highlight it, create a sketch, datum plane 13. And then I'm going to go to my model, and I'm immediately going to hide datum plane 13 so that it stays out of my viewport. And now I'll go to my right view, and I can simply sketch and trace this tail. Now I'm looking straight on at a curved object, but this is a straight on image of that same object in my current view. So this will be just fine. I don't have to be normal to my plane as I trace this. So I'm going to come in here, right, and this looks like a bunch of straight lines. And of course, one of the hard parts about doing this is knowing if you should put your line towards the middle, the inside, or the outside. I'm going to trace towards the outside on this. And I was acting like I had polyline on. Clearly I didn't. So that looks like it's held pretty tight. Now I'm going to close this up. So if I like where these are sitting, I'll simply lock these points in place. And then make sure that these lines are within my body. And since this is simple tracing and I got this kind of funky NURBS surface going on, I may have to adjust this after I extrude if I have an edge coming out of my body, right? But this is looking pretty good. I think I'll wireframe this. And try to get that perfect. I'll leave these two unlocked so I can adjust easily if necessary. Personal preference. We'll come over here back to as is. And let's exit our sketch. We'll close. We'll do an extrude. And let me look from the front here. Looks like I've got some hidden bodies. Looks like I have a few hidden things here. Oh, and I've got the old failed to validate broken face error. So let's take a closer look at what's going on. This is our sketch 19 right here. I'm going to edit my sketch. Now the failed to validate broken face pretty much always comes from lines not connecting, right? And these, if I zoom way in, appear to be connected. So if I come over here, right, I'm seeing a good connection even when I zoom way in. I'm going to switch back to my wireframe view. And look at that. We better merge these, right? So that's what's causing that error. And of course, I'm going to have to fix that line. We'll go back to the right view and make sure that we are a little bit more. Yeah, that's looking okay. So, sorry about that, but I'm leaving this in here. I'm not going to reshoot the video or anything because it's important that people see errors. A lot of people have been helped out by seeing how troubleshooting works. We'll go with pad, sketch 19, okay. That looks a bit more expected, but we want to be symmetric to plane, of course. So we're going to say symmetric to plane. And we'll take this down just a hair. We want this maybe 1.75. No, 1.5. Let's try that. That looks about right, right? We seem to be hugging that pretty well. We don't go to the top of our fin, but that's because there's always going to be minor errors between two images, and so this is where the side view ends, and this is where the front view ends, right? The images aren't perfect, so that's why we don't have a perfect alignment. But if I say OK, then we've created one of these, and of course I want to bring this back into as is. Great, we could probably just smooth that out with fillets in a little bit and be on our way. So nice easy way of doing things there. So we have that, and next I want to focus on the next tail, which I'll make with curved shapes. Again, probably not some brilliant innovation for anyone who's seen this before. We'll go to the YZ plane. In fact, you've seen me make curved shapes with the wings even. We'll go sketch on that. Now you can see the general area of the tail, right? And I want to make a slot shape, and that's nice because FreeCAD accommodates that well. It really does make drawing slots easy. To better see my view, we'll go back to wireframe, or rather, actually wireframe. There we go. And it looks like our tail starts right around here. Of course, I'm sketching from the center of the plane, and this tail is way out on the edge. That looks about right. I'm going to lock down 2 points. And man, how did we get some redundant constraints? I'm going to delete that. And I think, yep, that gives us all the degrees of freedom that we want. So if I look at this more from the top here, I want to make sure I kind of capture where this tail is going to begin. And it looks like right a little bit further back. Again, looking from the top here. I think that's something we can work with. Next, when we know right about where we want to be, I can lock this down. We'll probably get a redundant constraint on this as well. Nope, looks like we're good. I'll make this for construction. I'll add a point coincident onto this arc body, and we'll go with a horizontal. In fact, I think this is my first time using hotkeys, so I'll bring up my keyboard monitor in case you need to see what keys that I use, but I'll make this horizontal. We'll do the same up here for construction, and we'll add in a horizontal point horizontal, and I'm going to grab an arc. You certainly can use a center point arc if you like. I'm going to go with equal here. Equal there. Equal. Equal. That point gives us a nice little handle to hold on to when we do the curve shapes workbench, right? We have the outermost points of that profile. Next, I can create a sketch on my XY plane. And the first thing that I'll do is import those points. Import that outer point, makes life so easy. And import that point. We'll go back to the top. And I wonder if I can get away with doing a line. That's actually looking pretty good. Not perfect, but really good. This one I cannot, right? So we're gonna let's do 2 lines. And I like the way that these points are sitting. So I'm going to get my fix and lock this point down. And I know that I want to lock this point down as well. And from here, since that's a horizontal constraint, I can adjust this line to about the right location and fix that. All right, so we're fully constrained, and we just have to worry about this little section here. I'm going to use a B-spline. So I want this and this to have a vertical relationship. And that way, whatever I do, I know that I'm ending on the right kind of tangency, if you will. I know that I want this point and this line to have a coincident relationship. And that way I know that I've got a degree of tangency, however this ends up. Everything else is fair game for good adjustment. And we actually look like we're starting in a really good position to begin with. I think that matches our profile really well. So I'll close that. Now, let me grab my front plane and finish this off. This should be a very easy and simple sketch. What I'll do first, nice that I'm in wireframe so I can actually see stuff. I'll import the top and bottom of these points, right? I'm going to import this top point and that bottom point. And those, of course, go to my front plane here. Going back to the front view. I think I'm going to make another slot shape because FreeCAD just makes those so easy. And when you use programs that don't have something that makes slots for you, you start to really appreciate just how good these slots are. I'm going to stick these points together after I deleted the side of that slot, and I'll re-add a horizontal constraint. You can see that there's probably a little bit of misalignment between our images, and that's okay. One other thing, this graphical area here and this right here might suggest to me that this tail is located at a slight downward angle. So to accommodate that, maybe I will get rid of these horizontal constraints, and we'll make sure that we have a parallel relation here and here. And now I should be able to just offset this at a sort of a downward slope, which I think is a little bit more true to the images. This doesn't match up with our front picture, but it seemed to match up with the other sketch images pretty well. So I think that about does it. We'll close. And then let's go to the Curve Shapes workbench. I'm still in part design, but that's okay. Well, you know, the the part design body, but that doesn't have any issue in dealing with curved shapes. I hold Control, I can select each sketch. We'll go to curved shapes now. Oh, I went to curves, I want curved shapes. And we'll choose this first option. I'll switch my draw style to see my tail a little bit more clearly to as is. And we go to our curved array, 001. And we have 4 items. If I change this to true for solid, you can kind of see we don't really look like the tail that we have. And it's one of my favorite things in curved array is to increase the number of items. 50 seems to be my magic number. And if I go to the top view, so I can see some nonsense right here. And this will be something that we can address live. Again, I like to troubleshoot because some people tell me that it's helped to know what to look for. So sketch 22 is going to be my number one culprit. We're going to make sure that as this sketch that determines, our top view terminates, sketch 22 won't interfere. So I'm going to just drag that a lot further out. And that way we have one sketch that determines what the end of the tail is. And that will probably, well, that's changed things. But let me get rid of my curved array, and then I'm going to highlight sketch 20, 21, 22, and redo this curved shapes and see if that makes a difference. Okay, with this curved shapes redone, we'll change this solid to true, and we'll give this 50 items, and we have the same phenomenon, right? Now there is some built-in fail-safes with the curved shapes workbench, and that comes with offsets. So we started on this side and we're ending over here, and if I apply a modest offset end, maybe 1 millimeter, that fixes the edge right up, right? So this is a common problem with an easy solution. And I can even just play with this 0.5, 0.25, 0.125, and keep on going until the value gets small enough that we start having an error again. I'm pretty happy with that. But if I say 0.05 perhaps, yep, we start, no, 0.05 works. 0.01, right? As long as you have an offset value, and it also gives you kind of a clear view to see how this is failing, right? At 0.01 we can start to see a failure. So if I head on up to 0.05, I think that's just fine for me. So I'll save to make sure that that error doesn't show up again. And now it's just a simple matter of mirror, which we can do from the part workbench. Of course, this tail is part design, so I'm only going to mirror my latest curved array, and we'll do that around the YZ plane. And OK, there we have a nice symmetric tail that fits with our image very nicely. We can also, I'll head on over to part design now. And we're still in that same active body, so I'm going to choose mirror from part design. And of course I want my latest pad. And of course we have a little problem, and we can clear that up with the YZ plane specification. And that's looking a lot like an F18. Check that out. So we'll go to the front view, very nice. We'll go to the side view, very nice. We have some details that we'll want to add, like the nozzles in the back end, and that will also help us to clean up these tails. And we'll also want to add some missiles, because what fighter jet isn't complete without some super cool missiles? So, I'm happy this is looking like an F18. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.